prāṇa-pratiṣṭhā, ayōdhyā prāṇa-pratiṣṭhā, saṅkrānti, saṅkrānti, poṅgal, samādhipāda, sadhana vibhūtipada.
vidyā, guṇī, ati-cātura, kāja, karivē ātura. Unlike our previous episodes on the hanumān cālīsā, I would like to make this a little more interactive. In fact, I would like every episode to be interactive, and you will soon learn why and why interaction is so important between whoever is conveying knowledge or wisdom and whoever is receiving it. To get things a little more exciting, let's start with a quiz. Just a single question with multiple choice answers and only 3 choices. I will recite this 7th caupāī that our episode number 306 is focused on, which I already recited for you without the nyasas. In particular, the hasta nyasas, which are a part of the anganyasa. And then the quiz is based on 3 versions of the same caupāī. One, as it is given by Goswami Tulsidas ji, and 2 others slightly modified by yours truly, Tulsidharan. What I'm going to do is first change just one word. That would become choice B. Choice A, of course, is the original of Tulsidas. Choice B would be with just one word changed by Tulsidharan. And choice C would be with 2 words changed. But the bigger difference between these 3 choices would be in the anganyasas that I show. The question will be given to you at the beginning of this video, and the riddle will be solved by the end of this video. Let's see how it goes. To be able to understand or solve this riddle, all you have to do is to be aware of something that we have been talking about quite frequently on our channel as well as Vasandima's channel. That is, each of these 5 fingers on either of the hands, doesn't matter, left or right, stand for certain facets of ourselves. That is, parts of who we are or who we think we are, right? So you know that this is our self. This is our physical body, this is our emotional mind, this is our smart intellect, and this is our vital life. Instead of behaving as who we really are, that is ourself, we are taking on various forms and names. Along with that are associated the functionalities and duties, responsibilities, etc. A hint for you to be able to solve this quiz is that the Ramayana of Valmiki, or for that matter the Manas of Goswami Tulsidas ji, are even more spiritually focused in the Adhyatma Ramayana. And what does the Adhyatma Ramayana say? There's an analogy that the entire Ramayana, even though it is a historical event 7,000 years or more ago, and even though it's a wonderfully entertaining mythological story, far more significantly, it's happening every moment within every one of us, because Rama is none other than ourself, our pleasant or rather blissful, duty-conscious self. That is Rama, associated with the space element. Next, we have Sita, who is nothing but our emotional mind associated with water. Lakshmana, our physical body associated with the solid earth. Hanumān, the prāṇa associated with our vital life breath. And Bharata, the smart intellect associated with the fire element, energy, whereas this is the air element. Now, coming to the quiz. All of what I said so far is just reminding you of some of the information that you already know, which will help you to solve this quiz. So, what is the quiz? I will recite the 7th caupāī thrice. One as it is, the second and third with slight modification by 1 word and by 2 words, as I already mentioned. Now, what is the question? How out of these three nyasas that I'm going to do, three versions that I'm going to present, A, B, and C, only two refer to Hanuman. One of them refers to Ravana. So I want you to tell me or tell yourselves which of these three, A, B, or C, is Ravana. The other two, of course, will be Hanuman. So let's start with option A. Vidyā guṇī, ati-cātura, kāja, karivē ātura. It's very clear that I am having 5 parts of this caupāī, each of which associated with these 5 fingers. This is option A. I want you to tell me if you think option A is Ravana. Okay? If not, let's go to option B. Vidyā guṇī, ati-cātura, kāja, karivē ātura. This is option B. Now let's go to option C. If neither A and B are Ravana, maybe it is option C which is Ravana. So you have to tell me only one of these three are Ravana. You have to tell me which one. So let's see what is option C. Vidyā guṇī, ati-cātura, kāja, karivē ātura. So you see that in option A, it is the Tulsidas version as it is. Option B and C, the Tulsidaran versions. In option B, I changed Rama to Sita, nothing else. And in option C, I changed not only Rama to Sita, but I also changed Kaj to Koj. In other words, work to search. Okay, wait for the answer towards the end of this video. Now let's go into the Advaitic insights into caupāī number 7. Vidyā. Many people would say this is learning or knowledge. Very common name given even to girl babies in Bharat. But there's something far more profound in Vidyā. Even before we go to that, we need to understand that this entire caupāī is a dummy's version of the Muṇḍakōpaniśad. The Muṇḍakōpaniśad is one of the 10 or 11 principal Upanishads, and of course of the 108 Upanishads in total that Vasandima mentioned the names of in a song form or a chant form in her episode E306, which is nothing but one of those Upanishads itself extracted out and supplemented because our self Rama explains to our vital life breath hanumān that in order to achieve the fourth purushartha other than dharma or duty, kama or desire fulfillment, and artha or prosperity, the fourth one, liberation or moksha, nirvana, in order to achieve that, all that is needed according to Rama is the Mandukya Upanishad, an Upanishad named after a frog. By the way, Upanishads get their names in a very non-systematic manner. Like for example, the Kena Upanishad and the Isha Upanishad or Ishavasya Upanishad are named just after the first word or phrase of that Upanishad. Few others are named based on their size. Upanishad, one which is very large, Brihat, massive. And it's also an interface between the third part of the Vedas, Aranyaka, and the Vedanta, the fourth part, so that is Upanishad. And the Muṇḍakōpaniśad, of which this particular 7th caupāī in my deepest of meditations happens to be a summary, a very quick summary in a very impactful way thanks to the characters involved there. Let's look at the meaning of Muṇḍaka because this is coming from the Muṇḍakōpaniśad according to the insights that I have received in Samadhi. So when we say Muṇḍaka, it's probably ironic that I am talking about it because Muṇḍaka means clean shaven, a bald head. Typically the monks of the various orders like the Shankaracharyas of today and the original Adi Shankaracharya who started these monastic traditions. Why is this Upanishad called the Muṇḍakōpaniśad? Because it has 3 Muṇḍakas or 3 chapters, each of which fires you up towards samnyasa. What is samnyasa? Sannyasi or the world renouncer gets his tag from 2 parts of the word, the prefix sam and then nyasa. And there are 3 specializing prefixes that are used commonly in Sanskrit and of course the Veda Bhasha, which predates Sanskrit and includes the intonations as well. What are these 3 prefixes which give a special character to whatever is the word that follows it? They are pra, vi and sam. Pra as in prajna, vi as in vishaka, sam as in samnyasa, saṅkrānti that we are going to celebrate soon. Poṅgal and Makara Saṅkrānti. What do these mean? Very easy for us English-speaking people because 3 English words have actually come out of this. Pra is nothing but profound. So when we say prajna, it means profound jnana or profound knowledge, which means wisdom, awareness, and consciousness. Subtle differences between them, but essentially one and the same. What does V mean? V stands for vital. So when we say Vishaka, for example, it is a vital shaka. That is a special branching for the purposes of training. That is what Vishaka refers to. Next, Sam. Sam means sumptuously auspicious. Sumptuous is what Sam means. And when we say saṅkrānti, for example, which we are going to celebrate on Monday, the 15th of January 2024, usually it occurs either on the 14th or 15th, around that period. What does saṅkrānti mean? Kranti is revolution, a drastic change, whereas saṅkrānti is to make it sumptuously auspicious. Nyasa is mapping. Any nyasa is a conformal mapping. But if the conformal nature of it is perfect, then it becomes a samnyasa because it's a sumptuously auspicious mapping. That's the truest or most perfect conformal mapping. The muṇḍakōpaniśad essentially gets you off this rat race, even after winning which one remains a rat. In other words, even the winner of a rat race is still a rat. So getting you off this rat race of the material world to the recognition of who we really are metaphysically, going beyond the physical to the metaphysical. This is what the muṇḍakōpaniśad talks about. Of course, it's a pretty large Upanishad, not as large as the Brihadaranyaka or Chandogya Upanishad, but of considerable size. I'm trying to summarize, but Goswami Tulasidas has summarized it even more beautifully because his 7th caupāī is just that. In the Muṇḍakōpaniśad, which is derived from the lineage of Brahma to Atharva, the rishi or the seer of the Atharva Veda, in turn to Angir, and in the Bharadvaja Gotra, Angiras, and finally to Shaunaka, who asks the questions. Because most of these Upanishads, except the Mandukya, for example, are in the form of a dialogue. Because the Mandukya is very direct, and Rama told Hanumān that Mandukya alone, even though it's the smallest Upanishad, just 2 pages, 12 stanzas, is sufficient for moksha, for those who are hankering after liberation from the cycle of birth and death, where the action and reaction of the karma that we do through action, words, and thoughts keep coming back to us even after we get rid of this particular physical body and get into another through another birth. In the Muṇḍakōpaniśad, we find that vidyā is of 2 types. Paravidyā, knowing which everything else is known. That one knowledge which is the seed to every other knowledge intrinsically. Knowledge of bits and parcels of something or the other, which is what our education systems are steeped in, is aparavidyā. Paravidyā is Brahma-vidyā, knowing that we are ourself. We are the Atma, we are the Paramatma, we are Brahman, we are Parabrahman. That wisdom alone is sufficient, for everything else is a natural fallout or a collateral, at least intrinsically. So this is what was first given to anybody and everybody in the education system of Bharat, so beautifully explained as the Bharatiya Shiksha Paddhati. And the word Bharat itself is so beautiful because it is the storehouse of wisdom and not a static, stagnating storehouse of knowledge or the light of wisdom, but a dynamic one at that. Because there are many etymologies of Bharat, and the one which is close to my heart is as Bharat. Bha refers to illumination, light, knowledge, in particular paravidyā or Brahma-vidyā, the knowledge of ourself as Atma Brahman. Prajnanam Brahma Tattvamasi. I am Atma Brahma. Aham Brahmasmi. When the student first goes to the teacher, the student is taught Prajnanam Brahma. The consciousness, awareness itself is the ultimate truth or the only existing truth, which is Brahman. And once the student recognizes that the consciousness is Brahman, coming from, of course, the Upanishad of the Rig Veda, each of the 4 Mahavakyas comes from one of the 4 Vedas, then the student is taught not through reading, which is why when I said vidyā, I was pointing to the ears as Shravana and not reading, because the Vedic scriptures were written just a few thousand years ago, but from times immemorial have come through being spoken by the Guru and being heard by the Shishya. And this is not just about Aum Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Deva Bhadram Pashye Moksha Birya-jatra Sthirairangai Stushtu Vagum Sastanubhi Yashema Deva Hitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indra Vruddhashrava Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedha Swasti na Starcho Arishtanemihim Swasti no Bruhaspatir Dadatu. This is a Shanti mantra, ends with Aum Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. To overcome all obstacles, Adidhaivika, Adibhautika, and even Adhyatma. Because our concepts of spirituality are mere concepts. True spirituality is in wholesomely experiencing it. And that's all included in vidyā. Because the word vidyā, the very first word of this caupāī, vidyāvān guṇī ati-cātura, dhām kāja karivē ātura. That word vidyā itself is that prefix V that we talked about earlier, vital, and dhā. Dhā as in meditation. Of course, this is the small the and not the big the, but yet there is an aspect of it here because we go to another of the Upanishads, the Upanishad. Of course, as I said, it's the biggest of the Upanishads, so we'll not obviously go into all aspects of it, but what is relevant to Vidya, because there it's said that in order for true learning to happen, there are 3 stages. And who says this to whom? It's a very, very endearing conversation between Maharishi Yajnavalkya and his wise wife Maitreyi, not the other one, Katyayani, who was more into a karma yoga, doing all the activities that were required in order for their sustenance of the entire family, which includes, of course, all the students of Yajnavalkya as well. So what does Yajnavalkya say to his dear wife Maitreyi of the many different things here? He says, true learning can happen only when all 3 aspects of it are fulfilled. And what are those 3 aspects? Those 3 aspects are Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Why these actions? Shravana is essentially proactive listening, where you don't need to have, let's say, the attitude that the seer-sayer, whatever they are telling is the truth. Because in our Sanatana Dharma, the authority is never the truth, but truth is the authority. Truth is the authority, one and only authority. That's why a healthy debate, even between the teacher and the student, was encouraged so that the student can obtain that knowledge without any suspicion. But still a little bit of skepticism will be left because that's the nature of the intellect that we have. It's cutting edge. Smart intellects will always look for logic and reasoning holes rather than what connects. The second part of after Shravana is manana, that is chewing over whatever has been heard repeatedly, looking at the logical chain and looking for flaws and filling them so that intellectually the student himself or herself is convinced that whatever he or she has heard from the teacher is indeed the truth. Because how much ever anybody else convinces, however powerfully and however powerful that guru might be, still nothing better than the student student convincing himself or herself, because then all of the skepticism, all of the doubting Thomases are done and dusted with right away. So that's why not only do you hear with respect, but without the thought that whatever he or she says is the truth, but with a respect that that person has experienced the truth, and therefore what he or she says might have significance for me, without making any judgment whatsoever, just the input. But input is not enough. Processing has to be done. That is manana. Input is shravana, processing is manana. And that's not enough. Input and processing alone is not enough. Unlike in today's learning system, we have to assimilate and become one with the knowledge. In other words, there are no three things. There's not like a knower, the knowing, and the knowledge. All three are one and the same. The knower, the knowing, and the knowledge become one and the same. And when do they become one and the same? Only when the third part of learning or vidyā is completed. And what is that? Nididhyasana, according to the Upanishad, according to sage Yajnavalkya in his discourse to Maitri. Nididhyasana. Again, etymologically we can understand what it means. Nidhi, many of us know, again it's a common name, means treasure. So treasure of what? Nidhi, dhya, asana. Dhya, again, dhyana, meditation. A much deeper contemplation now, which is entirely opposite to what was done in manana, because manana was a dharana, an ekagrata, a focus, a concentration, whereas dhyana, even in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, dharana and dhyana are two separate limbs amongst the 8 limbs. Sorry, I had to pause because there was an announcement about the Ayyappa Swami temple in Varaturu, or Varapuri as its original name is. The Kumbhabhishekam is going to be performed, and therefore there's an announcement on the loudspeakers, and I didn't want that to disturb the audience. So that is Nididhyasana. It's a treasured, meditative self-establishment in absolute stability, because an asana is that in which you are not only comfortable but also stable for a long duration of time, as long as it is required. And nididhyasana is to be established in that deconcentration, opposite of concentration, just the witnessing part, so that the knowledge and the knowing get assimilated in me, the knower, the student. That's how important Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, the 3 parts of learning are, according to the Upanishad. Come back to our caupāī and its correlation with the muṇḍakōpaniśad. So vidyā is a vital dhyana that we are doing in order to learn through all of these 3 aspects: Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Input, processing, and assimilation. The word is still not completed. Goswami Tulsidas doesn't just say vidyā. He says vidyāvāna. What is this vāna? Vidyā is knowledge, and vidyāvāna is a knower of that knowledge. Once there's a distinction between vidyā and vidyāvāna, then what arises, according to the muṇḍakōpaniśad, it is the aparavidyā, knowing which the knower gets an aham, an identity, and therefore vāna, vidyāvāna. So once we have an identity, what happens? Vidyāvāna. Then we put on various roles in which we have various names and forms and try to fulfill the duties as per those roles. But for the true vidyā, that is the paravidyā or brahmavidyā, the knowledge of ourself as Brahman, as Atma, then vidyāvāna makes us beyond aham, or an identity. We are free of all identities, because we are ourself, and ourself cannot be put in words. Ourself is an asymptotically correct solution, but it's not the exact solution, because the exact solution is beyond all languages, including Sanskrit and Veda Bhasha, which come closest to it, and therefore they are the asymptotic languages to the ultimate truth. And therefore we can say Brahman, Parabrahman, Atma, Paramatma, but that's not it alone. There's much more to it, or much less to it, either going to infinity on the one end of the spectrum or to 0 in the other end of the spectrum, everythingness or to nothingness. That is vidyāvāna. So what happens after vidyāvāna? Now we have got an aham, an identity, so we get guṇī. If it is aparavidyā, we get these 3 gunas of tamas below the muladhara, atala, vitala, sutala, rasatala, mahatala, thalatala, patala. Or we get rajas Rajas at the Mūladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura, our operating points, our offices, or we get Sattva, which is Anahata, Vishuddhi, and Ajna. These are the only three gunas most people know of. But the most important state is triguṇātītā, which is also three: Sahasrara, Matrupitru, Guru Gayatri. These three are beyond all qualities, beyond all gunas. That's why it is three. That means three. So you see the root of the English word again. Guna, which is the potential energy, latent potential energy, or the tendency or the quality that arises. It's beyond all of that. And that's the triguṇātītā state we are trying to go to. Another of these Shanti mantras, remember, Bhadram Karnevi, which I chanted, is for all Upanishads of the Atharvana Veda, including the muṇḍakōpaniśad that we are visiting today, the Mandukya Upanishad that I mentioned as the ultimate, the Ganapati Atharva Shirsha Upanishad, my favorite because that's the first one that I learned thanks to my guru in Atlanta, Anjaneya Shastri Garu, much younger than me, working with the same PhD advisor, but much more wiser in the paravidyā rather than the aparavidyā. Even the Surya Upanishad, very important for me now that I've lost sight in my right eye almost entirely, the right eye being the seat of Surya, the real Surya, as opposed to what we see outside, which is a reflection or a projection of the Surya that is in the right eye. That Surya Upanishad is also in the Atharvana Veda, so that also starts with Om Bhadram Karnevi. Each of the Vedas have a Shanti mantra of their own, so all of their Upanishads, very few Upanishads are in the Rig Veda and Samaveda, most of them are in the Krishna and Shukla Yajurvedas, and of course the Atharvana Veda, which is an ultimate repository, Atharva himself being the son, the eldest son in fact of Brahma, and therefore having inherited a lot. By Brahma, of course, we don't mean a person, but our own creativity. Not the creativity of this body, mind and intellect, but of ourself, the Atma, the Paramatma, the Brahman, the Parabrahman. One of the Shanti mantras that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, almost all of you are familiar with, and chant quite frequently is Aum Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityormamrutangamaya Aum Shanti Shanti Shanti. Most translations of this are so unfortunately watered and diluted even by some of the so-called spiritual leaders of today and of the past as well, that they would just say, lead me from untruth to truth, asatoma sadgamaya, lead me from darkness to light, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, and lead me from mortality to immortality, mrityorma mritangamaya. And let there be peace at the divine level, at the physical level, and at the metaphysical level, the subtle causal apart from the gross. There's much more practical relevance when you look at it deeply as an insight during your meditation, and that is asatoma sadgamaya is referring to the transformation of the other two gunas, in particular rajas, to sattva. Asatoma, because rajas is asat, that is, it is not sattva guna, and therefore you're trying to transform it into sattva guna of the anahata, vishuddhi and ajna. Instead of Mūladhara, Swadhisthana and Manipura, the lower chakras, you want to transform it to the next three higher chakras. So you want to slowly reduce your rajas and enhance your sattva. That is asatoma sadgamaya. What is tamasoma jyotirgamaya? Tamasoma, the word itself is a giveaway. From the tamasic tendencies of the lower thala chakras, the seven lower lokas, if you want to call it, to who we are more closer to the truth. That is rajas, slightly better than tamas for most situations. I'll come to the qualification of these as good or bad, which is absolutely inappropriate later on. But right now, let's see in terms of the evolution. So from a tamasic nature of a Kumbhakarna to the rajasic nature of a Ravana, and eventually to the sattvic nature of a Vibhishana is what the Ramayana or Adhyatma Ramayana are talking about. So tamasoma jyotirgamaya. Tamasoma, you understand, is tamasic gunas. Because we say tamasoma jyotirgamaya, why is jyoti associated with rajas? Well, rajas, passion, ambition, aggression is duality in nature. Because Because again, you look at the root of it. Rajas has a Raj in it. When can you do Rajya or ruling? Only when there is Praja. Without a Praja, who is a Raja? Can any Raja have a kingdom without a Praja? Without the people of the kingdom? It makes sense only when you have that over which you're ruling. In other words, you already divided into more than one when the truth is only one. And therefore, Rajas. But at least it's not the negligence of tamas. It's not the indolence of tamas. It's not the delusion of tamas. It's not the lethargy, laziness, procrastination of tamas. Wasting away. At least you're created two. The second being a projection of your first, your truth. And then you start ruling over it. That's light compared to tamas, the darkness. Compared to Kumbhakarna, Ravana is slightly better in the sense of being more evolved. Then finally, what do we say? Mrityorma amritangamaya. So sattva is not the goal. Sattva is an intermediate stopover, my dear friend. Even if you're operating from the anahata, vishuddhi and ajna, you are still in the physical realms of air, space and perception. You have to go beyond that through grace. That's what is meant by Mrityorma, because this is still mortal. Even when you're in aerospace and its perception, you're still mortal. You have to go beyond aerospace and its perception through pure grace. And that's essentially at these three levels. And that is Amrutangamaya. The Sahasrara, Matrupitru and Guru Gayatri are beyond all physicality, the metaphysical. Again, from the etymology, you can make out what is Sattva. Sattva, many people would say serenity, equilibrium, balance, peace, goodness. Even people use that word for this. Well, those are all watered down aspects of Sattva. True Sattva is Sattva. You are the truth. Initially we were lethargic, we didn't know anything. At least here we came to plurality, in particular duality, and we started ruling over the other. Rajas. Rajya karna, Rajas. Rajyam seyyirdu, Rajya madodu, Rajas. That was tamasoma jyotirgamaya. Then what happened? Asatoma sadgamaya. So you are essentially recognizing that duality or plurality is actually singularity of I and I alone. But still in the physical realm. It's kind of a dichotomy now that from a knowledge perspective, I'm aware that there is only one. But from all the sense organs that I am seeing, hearing, tasting, touching or smelling, there seem to be more than one. So the knowledge is not full even in sattva, and that's why you need to go to the triguṇātītā state, Mrityorma Amritangamaya. But why isn't this Shanti mantra starting from Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Asatoma Sadgamaya, and then Mrityorma Amritangamaya? We have to create a vacuum, my dear friends. Most people who are reading these scriptures are not the tamasic people. They are the rajasic people who are reading scriptures or listening to them. They need to know, my dear friends, get out of sattva, even the positive, get out of rajas, even the positive aspects of rajas, like being ambitious, achieving, goal-oriented, etc., are very, very stupid and silly goals. Doesn't take you much farther in your evolutionary journey. And so we start with asatoma sadgamaya. Now a vacuum is created in rajas. What happens when there is a vacuum? It pulls things from the bottom. That is when tamasoma jyotirgamaya happens. And now mrityorma amritangamaya. Now that you know tamas or very less of tamas, it's mainly rajas and sattva, and whenever rajas comes, it's also pushed up to sattva. Now you can go further up with all the qualities. Otherwise what happens? You still, even when you go from sattva to triguṇātītā state, some might still be left in tamas, some might still be left in rajas. So first you transform all of your rajas to sattva, then you transform all your tamas to rajas, and then automatically the rajas transforms to sattva, sattva transforms to triguṇātītā. That is the beauty of guṇī, the third word in the first line of the seventh caupāī. Vidyā, vāna, guṇī. I'm saying third because I'm breaking vidyā, vāna as two. Vidyā and vāna. Vidyā is that vital meditative learning, including Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, and then that gives you an identity or aham, that is vāna. So it is vidyā, vāna are the first two. The third is guṇī. Because once you have an identity, that's when you have these energies, the potential energies, the latent potential energies shining forth as tendencies, vasanas, samskaras. And that is what is classified as these three gunas. And this fact that it's out of aham that gunas arise is also mentioned in the muṇḍakōpaniśad, which is why I claim that the seventh caupāī of Goswami Tulsidas ji's Hanumān cālīsā is muṇḍakōpaniśad in a nutshell for dummies like us, in particular me. Guṇī. Well, for those who have got aparavidyā, this guṇī is a particular percentage of tamas, rajas and sattva that we are at every point in time. But what about Hanumān or any other Jivan Mukta who is realized or enlightened even while being embodied in this physical body? What about for them? Because they have got paravidyā or the Brahma vidyā, the knowledge that they are ourself. In that case, why guṇī? Why do we say guṇī with Hanumān? Well, think of character actors like the famous Balraj Sahni in Bollywood, Anupam Kher, for those of you who are too young to remember Balraj Sahni, or in Hollywood, maybe David Warner, or in Kollywood, Kodambakkam's Sharanya, character actor, Nagesh, Manorama, Nasir. What does character acting mean? Everybody, of course, plays a character, but these are people like Saranya. She can do unique roles. She's not branded as this or that. They can do any kind of different roles and feel at home, at ease with it. They might be supporting roles many a times, but still, they just blend with that. That's a character actor. And Hanumān is such a guṇī. He is triguṇātītā, but he puts on that makeup, that costume whenever required because of the situational awareness. Because there's such a keen perception from all the sense organs. Remember, sense organs are indriyas, but they are not the only indriyas. The 5 sets of sense organs are jnanendriya, whereas the 5 sets of limbs or organs of action rather are karmendriyas. The common word between them is Indriya. Indra, many people think is just that king of the demigods who is ruling over heaven, all that nonsense. Yes, those are good for story time for kids when we are still in the kindergarten of spirituality, but Indra means to enable. And Indriya is essentially that enabler of what? Enabler of the input and enabler of the output. Because we are still thinking that we are something and there is something other than us. There is that duality or plurality because of which an exchange has to take place. And that exchange takes place through these 5 input orifices or sense organs and 5 output organs of action. Most of you know the sense organs, of course, are eyes, ears, nose, the tongue and the skin, all of which you see in the head itself, apart from the rest of the body, because the skin is all around. And also the organs of action, the mouth through which we speak, again in the head portion above the torso, the hands, the legs, which make you do work or give you mobility, the organs of reproduction, which helps in procreation and continuity of the species, and then the organs of excretion as well, which ensures that there is some kind of a balance that is happening between your input and the output. You're eating and you're getting rid of what is not absorbed. And of course, that includes not only urination and excretion, but also sweating and various other aspects. And these include thoughts and spoken words as well, apart from the actual action that most people are familiar with. There is so much of wisdom and knowledge here that even after becoming triguṇātītā, getting rid of these gunas and becoming ourselves, if we are still embodied, like the Chiranjeevis like Dhruva, Prahlada and Ashwathama, and of course a negative role also, because like Nasir, Prakash Raj, etc. play negative roles as well. So does Anupam Kher, capable of very much. The character actor should be able to do whatever is required of a particular situation with total involvement and responsibility, as if he has that guna, as if she has that guna, or that combination of gunas. Once the makeup and the costume and the clap is done by the light boy for the director and the camera starts rolling, they are into the skin of that character that they are playing, however different it might be from the characters that they have played in the past. And that's my dear Hanumān for you. He is a triguṇātītā, but he can become a guṇī of sattva at times, if necessary rajas, show of rajas, a show of tamas, various kinds of percentage combinations of these. Anything is possible with a complete complete awareness in the deepest core of who we are, not necessarily in the brain, but every cell of the physical body, the emotional minds, various facets, the intellect, and of course in the prana. We are aware that we are ourselves, the Atma Brahman, but still doing all these things for the heck of doing it, because we have a keen perception, a situational awareness, and most importantly, we want to do, well, I'll come to that in the second line a little more detail, but essentially our playful self is unleashing a directorial blockbuster, and we are playing an awesome character role in that. That is Hanumān, our vital life breath, our prana. Next we say ati-cātura. What does ati-cātura mean? Because vidyāvān, guṇī, ati-cātura. So we have already learned and become learned either in the paravidyā or in the aparavidyā or both. Because if you know paravidyā, aparavidyā is just intrinsically known. You just need to get to the details as and when required. And guṇī, even if you're triguṇātītā, you can put on the makeup and act however you need to. For example, some of the great rishis can act angry. Doesn't affect them at all inside. None of the appropriate hormones for exciting that anger are secreted within their body, but they can put on a show of anger because they want to achieve something. They want to make sure that one of the disciples or shishyas is becoming much better or evolving faster. You need that shaping up or putting on an act for the sake of the others, so-called others, even though we know that they are ourselves too. So then we come to ati-cātura. Cātura is cutting-edge intellect, full of logic, reasoning, arguments one after the other, making sure everything is clear. But ati-cātura is not this intellect alone, because however intellectual you might be, you are still having a finite intellect. Because this vidyāvān that we have is not accumulating terabytes and terabytes of memory from various sources, heard or seen through videos or read through books. It's not bookish knowledge, but a phenomenal amount of intelligence rather than intellect. Intelligence, when we say without reference, it's actually universal intelligence rather than artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence systems, especially large language models, generative AI, and as we move towards artificial general intelligence, AGI, we can see that they are far more capable than any human being for that matter in any field. Maybe we are still not there yet in terms of AGI and the capabilities in the case of certain expertises, but it's just a matter of time. It's not whether it will happen, but when it will happen. Some say 5 years, 10 years, in just a few decades, it's bound to happen. Then what is the use of all this memorizing, this parroting? No, you need to be ati-cātura, infinite, universal intelligence, which no AI system can get. Most people are worried we'll lose our jobs when AI becomes big time. Already many people are losing their jobs. What do? Well, we have to do things at a deeper level of who we are. It's just a few centuries back, before the Industrial Revolution, most of the work was done through muscular activity. That's why security guards and the defense personnel, the warriors, the chief of war staff were amongst the most sought after, highest paid jobs. But now it's more of the intellectuals. So what happened with all those physically demanding jobs? They all were lost. Coolies lost their jobs and cranes were doing their jobs. Similarly, every other aspect which was physical in nature, be it washing machines instead of dhobis, dishwashers instead of home helpers, the robotic vacuum cleaners instead of sweepers and janitors. Now do we complain that we have all these gadgets? No, it makes our life so much more comfortable. And what happened to the people who are doing all those jobs? They might have lost their jobs, but they upskilled or reskilled with different sets of skills in order to earn much more and much better than before. And their future generations have prospered in various other job scenarios. We went beyond the physicality. Similarly, we need to go beyond the emotionality. We need to go beyond the intellectuality as well and focus on our vitality and our spirituality. It's really wonderful time a few decades down the line when even intellectual jobs will all be done by machines, and you call them humanoid robots or whatever. It doesn't matter in what form they come, but essentially we will now no longer be required to do that. Just like I don't need to wash my clothes physically or to sweep my floor, wash my dishes, all of that which I was doing with help of my muscles, I no longer need to do. They're all being done done by machines, washing machines, dishwashers, robotic vacuum cleaners, etc. Similarly, teachers, professors, scientists, singers, artists, all of those jobs will be taken over, and then we can focus on the deepest of the Patanjali system of pratyahara, taking our senses inward, dharana, concentration, to help us eventually get to dhyana, which is deconcentration, and then samadhi, becoming one with ourself, recognizing who we truly are, which was the very purpose of this birth, which was the very purpose of this species as human beings. We lost millennia after millennia doing all kinds of silly, stupid things with our physical body, our emotional mind, our smart intellect, ignoring these two. But these were the things which were keeping us alive and kicking between birth and death, however long or short our lives were. But now, the recognition of that which we truly are, whereas the ancient Indian educational system of Bharatiya Shiksha Paddhati, what was it doing? It was helping us to explore this Prajnanam Brahma, Tattvamasi, that thou art, I am Atma Brahma, this Atma is Brahman, and aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Once this knowledge has sunk in deeply, then learning any other knowledge is a breeze. And that's when you put on the makeup as a guṇī and become ati-cātura, which is not just the integration or a volume integration of all the intellects put together, because that is still finite, which is what the large language models will continue doing. Better and better versions of it, let's say beyond GPT-4, GPT-4.5, GPT-5, etc., or for that matter, Gemini, Ola Krutrim, or Bharat GPT of IIT Bombay and Geo Alliance, the Meta version, etc. All of these will compete with each other, become better than each other. All of these, however massive they become, will still be finite. Whereas at this level, we are infinite. Through an incremental approach, through installments, we can never reach infinity. It's endless counting. And for this to be achieved, the only and only way is any one of the 108 Upanishads, any one of the 108 plus 4 effortless Shiva Sutras given to Parvati, that is by our own nothingness to our own peaking celebration. When Parvati says, I'm going to find something beyond the 112 pathways for mukti, moksha, for liberation, Shiva says, impossible. There's nothing more than this. And even amongst these 112, 4 are effortless. Only 108 require an effort. Eventually, in those also, at the end, the effort has to be given up. She tries to find something beyond the 112. She fails and comes back and surrenders in silence to Shiva. Now the she, he are all made up stories. What really it means is our peaking celebration surrenders to who else but ourself of nothingness. Why 108 Upanishads and 108 plus 4 effortless paths and 108 chakras? We know the 7 chakras, that they are the major junctions. Actually, there are many stations between junctions even on the railway line, right? Similarly, in the Kundalini path, also in the Sushumna Nadi, there are many more minor chakras, totally 108, and we could operate from any one of them and achieve the ultimate, that is Mukti Moksha, essentially a double promotion, triple promotion, or multiple promotion to either the Sahasrara, Guru Gayatri, or the in-between Matru Pitru, purely through grace once we are at the Agnya. But if we are anywhere in the lower chakras, any one of the 108 for that matter, we have to put in effort, and that effort is sadhana, my dear friends. That effort is tapasya. That effort is karma yoga through your physical body, bhakti yoga through your emotional mind, jnana yoga through your smart intellect, raja yoga or kriya yoga through your vital life breath, the prana, and all of these put together as Sankhya yoga as ourself, to not become ourselves, because we already are. We always have been. We are forgotten. We are not experiencing it even if we know intellectually. To be able to holistically experience that truth, the only and only way is this integration of all of these paths, Sankhya Yoga, because we don't want to give up on any one of them. Whatever helps us to speed up this process, ati-cātura, infinite intelligence. Let's move on to the second line. Rāma kāja karivē ātura. That is the original Goswami Tulsidas version. I'll come to the 2 other versions that I talked about in the quiz at the beginning of this video later. Rāma kāja. What is that? Rama is ourself, the Atma, Parabrahman, and Ram kāja is what? Is the work of ourself. The situational awareness and the strategies for the long-term aspects. And the longest term aspect is the infinite term aspect, which is the recognition of the oneness of everything, whether it is everythingness or Vishnu or the nothingness of Shiva. It's all one and the same. And I am that, you are that, we are that. That is Ram kāja. That is strategizing. But are strategies alone enough? You talk to any top military officer, yes, they are focused on strategies, but they have to be practically implemented. They have to be practically implemented. And how do you practically implement them? Through tactics. Karivē ātura. Karivē is the tactics, and ātura is timely implementation of the tactics in a sequential fashion, maybe sometimes overlapping, but they have to be executed. Like for example, we couldn't win the one-day international World Cup even though the Indian team was performing so well. They had wonderful strategies, they had planned well, and they executed it also tremendously well for 10 matches. And the 11th one, when it mattered the most in the finals, the execution was not there. The strategy was there, the execution was not there. That is why karivē and karivē ātura, that is speedy implementation, as speed and scale are equally important. You have to scale up your impact and also speed it up for timely gains for everybody, anybody who is involved, not just human beings, all of life, not only on this planet, but the entire universe. Now, coming to the solution to the quiz that I gave you, I had options A, B, C. In option A, I said vidyāvān. That means the real vidyā that we are talking about is not intellectual, but at the vital level, at the pranic level. That is the real learning. That's where it's taking place, whether you know it or not. If you know it, it can happen in a much more efficient way, accurate way, reliable way. That's why vidyāvān is associated with prana. Guṇī, qualities associated with our emotional mind. Chapters 14, 17 and 18 of the Bhagavad Gita do talk about it. But as I said, the Gita is just a plagiarized version of the Upanishads. It's for those who cannot read or hear so much from the Upanishads or understand its depth. It's told in a much more endearing story form, but many Upanishads are also in story form, exception being things like Muṇḍakōpaniśad. That's 14, 17 and 18, which talks about the three gunas, triguṇās. And then at the emotional mind level. So vidyāvān, guṇī, ati-cātura, intellectual, Ram kāja, ourself, karivē ātura, the karma yoga with the physical body. This is option A, and this is Goswami Tulsidas. How can he talk about Ravana? He's talking only about Hanumān. So option A is not Ravana. Is it option B or option C? Let's look at option C first, where I changed two words. I changed Rama to Sita and I changed Kaj to Koj. So then what did I say? Once again vidyāvān associated with this. Guṇī, I went to this, because when I say Guṇī here, it is the sattva, rajas, tamas, mostly sattva, for those who are spiritually inclined, who are evolved. But now I'm saying vidyāvān here just like before. Like in option A, I'm saying vidyāvān in option C also for prana, not here at the intellectual level. So it's the right way. But guṇī here, instead of here, like sattva, I'm talking about guṇī here for ourselves. And what is the guṇī of ourself? What is the guna of ourself? What is the energy, tendency, quality of ourself? Nothing. Triguṇātītā. That's the guṇī we are talking about. The character actor without any of the makeup, without any of the costumes, without any of a role to play, who is himself or herself, ourself. Ati-cātura, Sita, Koj, karivē ātura. Karivē ātura, once again the karma yoga. But now we are doing Sita, Koj. And who is Sita? Not just that lady, that queen, that mother of Lavan Kusha, that daughter of Janaka Raja, Rishi, but the Sita who is our mind. And we have to search our mind. I'm saying not Kaj now, but Koj, which means a discovery, a search, a research. And that is also done through the body cooperating. Karivē ātura, timely cooperation, because that's the platform on which everything else is. All the other koshas, the annamaya kosha, pranamaya kosha, manomaya kosha, vijñānamaya kosha, anandamaya kosha. So Sita Koj is actually doing research on our mind, not the kind of psychological, psychiatric research that goes on in the Western world, but a far more deeper one through dharana, dhyana and samadhi, which is possible only after pratyahara, which in turn is only possible after yama, niyama, asana and pranayama. That is option C, which is also Hanuman. He went in search of Sita to reunite Sita with Rama, ourself with our emotional mind. When I raise my hand, Siri thinks that I'm talking to it, and it started talking back to me about Sita. Well, coming back, option A and C are Hanuman. So by elimination, all of you know that it is option B, which is Ravana. But in that, I had changed only one word. I had not even changed Kaj to Koj. I had only changed Rama to Sita. But the nyasas were different, and that made it Ravana instead of Hanuman. What was it? If you remember, I closed these two. In other words, Ravana is operating his prana and atma without even his knowledge. It's not a conscious operation. It is an underlying operation. He doesn't even know that they are there, even though he is well read. He is a great Vedic scholar. He's a great artist playing the veena, a great king, even though the kingdom was snatched from his brother Kubera. But he's only thinking of himself as BMI, the BMI toolkit of body, mind, and intellect, the physical body, that is emotional mind, and the smart intellect. He is not in the prana, the vital life breath, or ourself. And that's vidyāvān, not from the pranic perspective, but from an intellectual perspective, just like the LLMs and AIs. As stupid as that we are, thinking that the intellect can give us all the knowledge, wisdom, and learning. We can become a vidyāvān, yes, of aparavidyā, not paravidyā or brahmavidyā, atmavidyā. Impossible at the intellectual level. It's possible only at the pranic level, but the prana is hidden, latent in Ravana, and therefore he's focusing on the intellect, and he's a brilliant intellect. Absolute logic, reasoning, perfect in it. So smart, smarter than most of us today, but purely intellectual. Unfortunately, in today's education system, we give so much of emphasis on the intellect, and that too, one part of the intellect, memory. Whoever memorizes so much is better, or at the most logic, reasoning, all the scientific thinking, blah 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 blah. They're all at the intellectual level, not at the pranic level, and therefore they are finite, not infinite. So vidyāvān. Guṇī, again at the emotional mind level, mostly rajas, that is Ravana. Ati-cātura, again he comes back to the intellect, which is fine. And instead of Ram Kaj, he's doing Sita Kaj. That is, he is working on just his mind, his passions, his likes, his dislikes, in particular his lust and greed. And that's what is the reason for his downfall, the cause of his downfall. Sita Kaj, karivē ātura. Again, he has to do things only through the karmendriyas. He senses through the jnanendriyas and acts out through his karmendriyas. So the riddle that I gave you up front, the solution is B. B is Ravana. Options A and C were still Hanuman. Option A by Goswami Tulsidas. Option C by yours truly, Tulsidaran, alias Professor Dinesh Kumar Arur Sampat. That's the 7th caupāī for you. Fairly long, but in time for poṅgal. Let your awareness boil over and spill over like the poṅgal from the pot, while expressing gratitude to the farmer who has made it possible for you to have the food on your plate, including the poṅgal. May your awareness also soar into the sky. saṅkrānti shubhāshayagalu. saṅkrānti ki shubhashish. And what is that? Soaring into the sky again unlimitedly, boiling over again unlimitedly, because that is the true wisdom. In the case of one, the food, the poṅgal, we express our gratitude to the farmer. In the other case, we express our gratitude to the wind, Vayu, Hanuman's father, because without the Vayu, the kite would never fly. poṅgal, saṅkrānti shubhāshayagalu. Namaskar. I'll see you again with episode number 307 with the 8th caupāī, unless I post something else in between, so the episode number might go up. In that case, excuse me. Thinking far too away. Thinking too far away. Namaskar. Jai Hind. And it's time for the prāṇa-pratiṣṭhā at ayōdhyā, śrī-rāma-janma-bhūmi. The sacrifices of so many generations of Bharatiya following the Sanatana Dharma to get a representation for ourself, our duty-conscious, pleasant self, was an inspiration not only to Indians but to so many other populations of so many other countries in Southeast Asia and beyond, be it Thailand, Indonesia, Bali in particular within Indonesia, and so many other countries, even in Japan, South Korea, China, so many other countries have had for millennia the influence of Valmiki Ramayana. Let's see what this prāṇa-pratiṣṭhā on the 22nd has in store for us, representing the 140 crore Bharatiya population as well as so many other Ram devotees around the world of various religions, doesn't matter, but those who are inspired by the life of Rama as a historical character or as a hero of a story, or more spiritually evolved ones as our own duty conscious self. For all of them, the representative is Prime Minister Narendra Bhai Damodar Das Modi ji, who has started 11-day vrata, including of course fasting and night vigils. Already he sleeps for only about 3 hours at night. Now it's probably lesser because he understands the importance and significance of this prāṇa-pratiṣṭhā, which is a consecration of the prana that we have captured, putting a part of it into the so-called murti, which is a pratima of Rama, to convert it into a vigraha. We already saw the prefix vi earlier is vital, and vigraha, graha means to grasp. Vigraha is a vital grasp. Before the vigraha has this prāṇa-pratiṣṭhā, that is before January 22nd, 2024, a Monday, that particular vigraha, even though it's so beautifully sculpted by, according to most news sources, whether we can trust it or not, I don't know, but from Karnataka, that vigraha might be pleasing for the sense organs, but doesn't have that life in it in the form that can inspire like the real Rama did 7,000 plus years ago, unless and until this prāṇa-pratiṣṭhā is done. And so what is prāṇa-pratiṣṭhā? You're essentially consecrating with your life, a part of your life, you're consecrating that murti, which is just a sculpture, which is a pratima, a reflection or a simulation of the erstwhile historic character Rama, and of course his entourage Rama Lakshmana Janaki. Jai bolo hanumān ki, I am atma brahmana kaya mano buddhi, jai bolo mahaprāṇa ki. That particular sculpture can become a vigraha, a deity, only after the prāṇa-pratiṣṭhā. First of all, it has to be a murti, a three-dimensional sculpture. Then it has to be a pratima. All pratimas need not be 3D sculptures. They could be 2D paintings or any other forms that you might take. But it has to be the intersection. If you're thinking of a Venn diagram, one circle is of murtis, 3D sculptures. Not all 3D sculptures are the deities, right? You can have sculptures of so many great personalities which adorn so many cities around the world. So that is a murti, like the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel murti, or the Statue of Unity as we call it, the Statue of Liberty in the US. These are all murtis. Then it has to be a pratima. That means it is a reflection or simulation of somebody whom we know. That is this other circle and the intersection of that. So the Statue of Liberty is not a pratima, but the Statue of Unity is both a pratima as well as a murti, but it's not a vigraha, because no prāṇa-pratiṣṭhā can be done through that. Only for the spiritually fully evolved like Rama we can do that. So within this intersection with one which is both a murti and a pratima, then you do prāṇa-pratiṣṭhā to it, add prana to it to do a prāṇa-pratiṣṭhā, then it becomes a vigraha, a vital grasping force, inspiring one and all. And this is something which emanates from our tantric knowledge systems, but that itself in turn gives its origin to Atharva, from which we get all these 30-40 Upanishads, including the most significant Mandukya, Ganapati Atharva-Upanishad, Surya-Upanishad, and the Muṇḍakōpaniśad that we talked about so much, examples of that. Muṇḍakōpaniśad also being amongst the 10 principal Upanishads on which Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya wrote bhashyas, and the Mandukya on which his great guru, that is his guru Govindapada's guru Gaudapada, wrote a karika, not just a commentary, but that becomes a part of the scripture. Nobody studies the Mandukya Upanishad alone, but the Mandukya Upanishad with the Gaudapada karika. So that's how profound these knowledge systems are. And I hope this video will inspire some of you to go to the original sources, to listen to chantings with the appropriate intonations, and then even if a few of them you can try to understand the intellectual meanings, or more importantly meditate on those sounds. Trust me, from my experience I tell you, it's a phenomenal growth at the ultimate levels of the prana and the atma. Because atma can never grow. It never grows big or small because it's infinite already. So what are we talking about when we say grow? We are saying that the BMI can start making lesser of themselves and therefore cognize, or rather recognize that we are ourselves, capturing a little bit of prana or life. Namaskar. Jai Hind. vidyāvāna guṇī ati-cātura, rāma kāja karivē ātura. Know-how. Unlike Macaulay Putras and AI-based LLMs, large language models that is, our truly educated vital life breath, OVLB, vidyā hasn't merely gathered and amassed countless memory-burdening terabytes of bookish university knowledge, social multimedia hearsay, internet content, degree certificates, medals, and awards towards a flaunt-worthy CV and LinkedIn profile, but far more significantly enhanced our inherent quality, guṇī, of keen perception, situational awareness, and strategic response, practically executed via a sequence of sound tactics, ati-cātura. Thus, our self's playful līlā, kāja, is tirelessly enabled and unfolded by our vital life breath, OVLB, promptly. Karivē ātura. Speed is as important as scale, as our beloved Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji repeats tirelessly, as and when needed, overriding the petty divisive agenda of the seemingly never-ending series of ridiculously metamorphosing temporary false identities assumed by the short-sighted BMI toolkit. Vidyā guṇī ati-cātura, rāma kāja karivē ātura.